Ukraine was a place that I'd been offered to teach a jiu-jitsu seminar prior to, I guess, the war commencing, the full-scale war commencing. And we're looking for a bit of adventure, something interesting to film, something following the news. Obviously, very controversial in the news. People have very strong opinions. And I was like, let's go over there. Let's throw a charity event. Let's do something. Let's train with the people and really experience it for ourselves. So we set up the seminar. Turned out to be the biggest seminar for jiu-jitsu in Ukraine history, which is wild, considering obviously they are at war. But everyone came together to support it. And one of the soldiers there, one of my friends there, a good friend now, who's on the front line, he made a comment on there. And he said, hey, like, this is a seminar to donate profits to the soldiers, but we're on the front line. And I was like, you know what? I'll come to you. And he's like, listen, I can't promise you'll survive, but I'll promise you'll have a good time. And I said, that's all I needed to hear. So we connected, and my friend Roman, we went really, really close. I think we were at the closest point 7 kilometers from the front line. Obviously, very surreal experience to be over there, seeing basically how the battles fought with all drones.
How long ago was this?
I think it would have been March or April. So we went there. We went, basically spent 2 nights up on the front line, went back to Kyiv, and that was it for that trip. In terms of crazy stuff that happened, obviously just the people living. Like, you download the air defense tracker. So at any time, there could be an air siren going off, an air alert on your phone. Could be like drones heading your way. Planes are in the air, missiles flying. And then those missiles will change direction and stuff. So the air alert, you don't know if it's heading a different direction, but they just sort of warn everyone. So you live under a constant state of fear, basically. And then on that first trip, the heaviest moment was I was going downstairs in the hotel to work out, which is honestly a rare thing these days, doing something healthy with myself.
You working out.
Getting in the gym, pumping some iron. And this was divine intervention that a hypersonic missile was shot down by the Patriot Defense System just like 5 minutes from the hotel. So the whole hotel and the attached gym just shook like crazy. And some people started freaking out. Most people went to leave to go outside, which I don't think is recommended, but you want to see what's going on out there.
This was in Kyiv.
This was in Kyiv. So it got shot down, and then some of the local troops actually took me to the site of where just part of the missile had landed in the ground and left this huge sort of indentation. They'd already cleared up most of the, shrapnel from the missile. I don't know if I should or if I was legally allowed to do this, but I took some of that missile back home with me. I don't know where I left it, actually. But I thought maybe that would raise some alarm bells and airport scans, but no. I took it regardless. And that was basically the craziest thing that happened on that first trip.
The Patriot Defense System is incredible. It's an incredible piece of technology. That's from the United States. It's expensive, but it's incredible. And then, so that's protecting Kyiv.
That's protecting Kyiv, yeah. That was at the time where U.S. hadn't voted to, I guess, keep funding the weapons over there. So it was kind of a tense moment because I think, everyone was thinking like, when do those air defense missiles run out? So that was a heavy moment for me, thinking, look at what it shot out the sky. Like, imagine if they didn't have that. But that was probably the most surreal moment. But Kyiv, largely, life goes on most of the time as per normal. I was faced with crazy messages and comments, even just posting that video. Like, I'm getting paid by Ukraine and stuff. And it's just like, people just don't understand that, like, life has to go on. Like, Kyiv's here, the front line's far away. Like, the cities have to largely try to operate as normal, or just life will not go on in those villages and cities.
Well, it's human nature as well. It's not just Kyiv, it's Kharkiv, it's even Donbass, Kherson. People get accustomed to war quickly because it's impossible to suffer for prolonged periods of time. So you adjust, and you appreciate the things you still have.
Yeah, it's some baller moves out there. I love seeing like people that just crazy stuff's going on from the war and they don't even react to it. They don't go to the bomb shelter. Yeah. It's like a baller move. Like, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. Actually, on that first trip as well, something else that I probably shouldn't have been allowed to do was go to Chernobyl.
Yeah.
So Chernobyl, I believe troops came through Belarus and there was some fighting going on in Chernobyl. Mm-hmm. I think the whole world got concerned at that point if any sort of radiation leaked. But Chernobyl, as it stands, the troops backed out and it's completely covered in mines. Very, very difficult to go to Chernobyl. Basically, as a tourist or as like a idiot like myself, should really probably not be allowed in a place like that.
Mhm.
But we were able to get there. We passed like 4 security checkpoints. It took 2 attempts. First time we tried to go in there was with the Special Forces guy. We cleared 2 security gates. Then they stopped us and basically threatened us with arrest. I rightfully so. Really have no business going to Chernobyl. We made a connection. I won't say who this connection was, but he had heard about what I had done sort of with a charity event and opened some doors for us to be able to go to Chernobyl. So we got to see Chernobyl. We had some filming restrictions there just because it was a crazy military sort of conflict at one point, and we got to actually see Chernobyl. Chernobyl has always been a dream of mine to see because it's just such an interesting place. And to see it under these conditions, very, very strange.
Yeah, what was that like? So there's no civilians there now.
It's just completely empty. I guess it's kind of like the fantasy you have. I imagine people go on tours of Chernobyl back in the tourist days when it was a tourist spot, and it would be busy, full of tourists. We got basically a private tour, so we got to really feel that abandoned sort of vibes. I guess I was interested in it from playing Call of Duty and then Chernobyl series, all the documentaries and stuff, but very, very strange place to go visit.
And it is now a minefield, like a lot of parts of Ukraine. That's one of the dark, terrifying aspects of war is how many mines are left. Even when the war ends, for decades after, there's mines everywhere because demining is extremely difficult. And that could continually kill people.
I don't think it'll be a tourist spot for a very long time, because if you were thinking about areas to demine when the conflict ends, an area where if you accidentally trigger a mine could cause a radiation leak, it's probably going to be very low on the list. So tourism for Chernobyl, who knows how long until that returns.
Why do you think you were able to get to Chernobyl? Why don't you think the Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian soldiers don't see you as a threat?
Maybe they were hoping I did step on a mine. Maybe my jokes didn't go too well there.
So your connection was actually Putin. He was trying to get rid of you.
Putin, yeah. Now, I don't know. I mean, we felt pretty safe when we were there. There was an air alert went off. They were kind of more concerned with me dying just for the PR side of things. It's like Australian tourists.
In one of your videos, I actually, heard Ukrainian language. They're talking about we don't want to lose an athlete. That's what they're saying as you're loading the rocket launcher.
Oh yeah, the rocket launcher. I shot a rocket launcher with the troops on the first trip, but the second trip I went back to, which was only maybe 4 to 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This time we went to some crazier spots. So we went to Odessa, which has been hit a ton.
I really enjoyed the video of old man stretching and like exercising on the
what is
Odessa
that? Is that a local custom?
Well, Odessa people are known historically to be wild.
That was wild. It was abrasive to the eyes, but I appreciated it. Especially a middle-aged man in underwear with a beer belly doing a Sundance at dusk. That would frighten many people.
Yeah. The battleship would turn around. So where else?
We went Odessa. We briefly went back to Kyiv. So I made a connection with the police chief of basically the entire country last time. And he had said to me that if I wanted to go somewhere sort of really heavy in terms of action, we could go to Kherson. And he's like, I'll personally escort you to Kherson. Yeah. And I was just like, well, here we have an invitation for adventure. I think it's a great idea to go. And I thought, you know what? I'll completely lie to my cameraman and tell him it's a safe trip to go on so that he can pass that information on to his fiance.
Yeah.
And she won't have any concerns.
Yes.
So we basically take this huge journey all the way down to Kherson. We switch at a city outside. I can't remember the name, but we had to switch to sort of armored vehicles. Mm-hmm. And I remember the guy that picked us up there said, hey, give me a phone number for someone to call to recover your bodies. Yeah. And he said that in a joking way, but I think he was serious. But I said, just leave it, Mm-hmm. I don't think they need it. I don't think we have much left probably if we get hit over there. Mm-hmm. But we go basically into Kherson. I think Kherson's population used to be like 250,000. Mm-hmm. Now it's like basically all military down to 50,000. So we went into the police basically station, and the bunker underneath the top of the building was destroyed. And then one of the local guys just took us on a city tour, which again, we had some filming restrictions because obviously anytime something's hit I guess the other side wants to be able to see what damage has been done. So if you take any footage of recently destroyed buildings, that's going to help them recalibrate and target the next shot. So Kherson being so heavily hit, it's basically within range of every single thing Russia has, every form of weapon, drones. Before we took the tour, he put some drone blocking things on top of the car, which didn't look reassuring. He also took a helmet out the back of the car, which I thought he was going to give to me, but he just threw it in the back of the pickup truck and said, "Oh, you won't need this. You'll be dead anyway." And I was like, "Oh, I've made a great life decision with this little Kherson tour." But then we took a tour of the city, and Kherson used to be kind of like a beautiful beach city by the Dnipro River. But basically, it's just the river that separates Russia from, I guess, the Russian land they've taken from Kherson. So Kherson split across that river, and there's just Russians on the other side of the river and Ukrainians on this side. So very, very dangerous spot. Kharkiv makes a lot of press because of the long-range missiles that hit, but Kherson's just being hit all the time. So we took this tour. We went along the river. We went to within 1 kilometer of the front line. So that was the closest we got. After this point, we heard artillery strike. And because you're in an armored vehicle, it sounds further away than it is. Obviously, the sound doesn't get in. So I thought it sounded far away. We could see some smoke that actually appeared close in the distance. The guy driving us took us to a point where a large building was blocking us from, I guess, the angle at which the missile would have came from. And I thought everything was cool. I thought that must have been off in the distance. And then we heard 2 more strikes hit very, very close. They sounded really loud. And then I think he's radioing in to see if everything's safe, if we can leave this point. And then we basically raced back. But I started to realize we were in danger at any point where he really sped the car up or sort of took sort of evasive movements in the car. But we got out of there, and I think I had someone translate it later. And basically, he was checking to see if the roads were clear for us to leave. Ultimately, it ended up being someone died and a few people injured from that blast, which was less than half a kilometer from us. And basically, they were radioing saying, "End the tour, come back to the police station."
Artillery is terrifying because they're just shelling, and it's the destructive power of artillery is insane.
Yeah, and it's constant all the time. Yeah, and you hear that noise, and you're like, "Is that coming or going?" Very, very concerning.
Right. You don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know, and just like that, it could be you. You're gone.
Last time the village we went to, basically, it was the day we left. So we stayed there overnight. The day we left, it just started getting extremely shelled. And the soldier we were with just took a selfie video of us. And basically in the location we were in, just hearing just artillery strike after artillery strike, just being like, "Oh, you guys left," and the fun began. So they take it in good spirit. I was trying to use their energy to reassure myself, but I guess when they see it every day, they're kind of more adjusted to it. They're not freaking out every time something crazy like that goes on.
Well, they have to, right?
Yeah,
they have to be in good spirit. You have to be joking and laughing, and
the guys are always laughing and joking. They were laughing and joking at me quite a bit, holding weapons, trying to shoot weapons and stuff. They got a lot of enjoyment out of me shooting the RPG.
Yeah, they're probably still telling stories of that crazy Australian American that rolled in.
They helped me out though in my marketing campaign for the tournament.
Yeah.
We were able to secure a Lada, classic Soviet Union car.
Mm-hmm.
We towed it. We painted it with the logos of the other event, the ADCC.
Yeah.
And we got to shoot some RPGs at it.
Yeah.
Great experience, great fun.
Yeah. It's a very creative marketing campaign.
Very dangerous one.
I don't think like Coke or Pepsi are going to do that one. So it's very, very innovative.
It was a bold move. Luckily, they let me get away with posting it. But when we were there, it was basically at a shooting range, and we cleared them out for a while. So we'd blown up the car. We'd set it on fire. We'd done all this sort of stuff. I remember we were trying to blow it up. It wasn't quite hitting. One of the missiles was lodged in under the car, so it was kind of risky. That could have gone off at any moment. But we needed to get it to ignite. We needed to get a shot where it was on fire. The logo of the enemy tournament was basically on fire. So we poured gasoline on it. We shot the gasoline tank. That didn't work. That must be a movie trick or something. And then we decided we'd light on fire a rag and just throw it into the blown out back window.
Hmm.
So I'm with this guy, special forces guy, and we throw the rag in the back.
Like soaked in gasoline rag?
Yeah, and we
Okay.
start running.
Yeah.
And he's like, stop, stop. He's like, it didn't go off. So we're sitting there quite close to the car, lighting it, trying to light more as we walk back to the car. And then we just hear the car ignite. And he's like, run, run, run. So we came quite close to death already at that point. But we wanted to get the shot with some photos in front of the burning logos. But we had told the guys at the shooting range to basically give us 10 minutes or so we could take the photos. I don't know if they didn't wait the full 10 minutes or if we took too long, but they started firing at the targets anyway. And then the ricochets were flying very, very close to us, over our head. One landed right by my leg. We're like, shit, we better get out of here. Obviously not much safety concerns at that point, but we survived basically artillery strikes. We survived a bit of friendly fire with the bullets coming our way. But again, I was strangely calm because the other guys were calm. But then afterwards, they said to me, they were like, oh, bro, if you got shot, we'd just have to dump your body at a hospital. We wouldn't be able to explain why you're here blowing up cars.
Right. Right. And you're American, an athlete, international celebrity.
They'd be like, what is he doing on the front line? There's no real good explanation for it. But I mean, even through the jokes and stuff, it's good to like highlight what's actually kind of happening over there. You know, it's obviously very, very bad.
What's the morale of the soldiers like? Is there still an optimism? Is there still a hope?
I mean, there's sort of the battle fatigue, you know, and as they say, like, all the heroes die early, you know? The guys, the real heroes that are willing to sacrifice themselves, they're the ones that are going to get taken out quick. Unfortunately, that's the reality from over there, but their thoughts are mostly that it's going to be a prolonged war. Like when I ask them about how fast the front line moves, they're like, oh, it could take 6 months to move 200 meters.
Yeah.
So it just feels like it's going to go on forever. And from the Ukrainian side's perspective, those guys talk to me about how when they hear radio intercepts of Russian soldiers marching to the same front line spot, is that basically they're marching into certain death at certain locations. And based on the radio transmissions, they know they're going to die, but they head forth anyway, straight forward into a Ukrainian position, which is just wild to me. I guess like World War II, they just keep throwing troops at it. And you see a ton of footage they take themselves, which is just mind-blowing. Obviously, some of this footage doesn't make it to the internet because it's got important sort of details in those conflicts, but like they're showing first-person perspectives of trench warfare. It's just crazy to see what some of these guys have gone through.
So I went to a lot of the same places as well, including Kherson. What was your sense of the place?
Kherson was like, it was just so destroyed. I think at this point, most of the civilians are gone. I saw a lot of just elderly people left behind, especially a lot of old men. And I just think they're just like, hey, I've lived here my whole life. I'm just never leaving. So no matter the level of danger, those guys just remain. And then it's largely just, I guess, military in Kherson. But that place felt very, very dangerous. I didn't realize until we got there just quite how destroyed it is.
How did that experience change you? Just seeing war head on.
How did it change me? I guess just realizing a lot of these soldiers are just like, you kind of distance yourself from them thinking that they're something separate. But really speaking to a lot of the Ukrainian soldiers, like my friend Roman, he hadn't lived in Ukraine for 8 years. He lived in France. He had a life. He's got a wife over there. He's got a daughter. He basically volunteered to come back to protect his mum and brother who still lived there. So it's like I used to view them military guys because in Australia and I guess in the US, they don't have this conscription ongoing right now. You know what I mean? Like, whereas obviously there's guys like Roman who volunteered, but then there's a lot of Ukrainian soldiers that were conscripted into the war. So it's like you just realize how a lot of these guys are everyday people. They're just in this crazy situation, like where Roman felt obligated to return to Ukraine. Like from my perspective, anyone in it from Australia or US, it's just a different perspective on like those. They feel different to the regular people fighting in Ukraine from my perspective.
Yeah, it's defending the land that is your home.
Yeah, like Japan was coming for Australia, I guess in World War II. They attacked the north, but really there was no foot battle, and there was no soldiers on the ground within Australia. I guess US too during World War II. So it's like a completely different perspective from our recent histories compared to like if you were a Ukrainian and there's Russians within the defined border, their responsibility to protect their homeland and their family is just something you can't imagine. But also, after having spent time with them, you can see why they feel such a strong sense of obligation to protect Ukraine, protect their family and friends.
And in a lot of cases, the soldiers are using their own funds to buy equipment, whether it's bullets, whether it's guns, whether it's armor. Is that still what you saw?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the weapons, America provides weapons. So we saw a wide selection of weapons. Some of those would be old Soviet weapons, like obviously the RPG we shot and what we shot out of it is all Soviet. It's very old weaponry. And then you've got US weapons that have been given as well. But in terms of the basic soldiers' equipment, like if they want good quality stuff that might be the difference between them surviving the winter or the summer, just in the extreme temperature range, like they have to pay for that all themselves. So they always joke about when foreign soldiers come over to train them, or a lot of foreign soldiers come to learn about sort of the drone technology they've developed on a budget, is they always joke with them about how like everything from most countries is basically supplied. All the good quality standard equipment they'd need is just supplied by the government. But in Ukraine, obviously, funding is very stretched. So these guys, to have the best equipment, they have to basically find money to pay for it themselves. And they'll do that by seeking donations. Best way to get donations would be to grow social media profiles. So that's when you see a lot of sort of social media warfare from a perspective of gaining fame to secure donations for their battalion to be able to fight better or protect themselves. And also some of the social media warfare, I guess, is psychological warfare against the enemy.
Yeah.
You'll see like private Telegram groups where they're showing what they've done to the enemy, what the enemy's done to them. It's just crazy.
Yeah, there's Telegram groups on both sides. And it's basically, some of it is propaganda, some of it is psychological warfare, some of it is just the human nature of being like, of increasing your own morale and the morale of the people around you by showing off successfully killing other human beings, which are made other in war. And the nature of this war has evolved. So drones have become more and more prevalent. They're consumer level cheap drones. Can you speak to that? Have you seen the use of FPV drones?
Yeah, so I mean, basically like a $300 to $500 drone. I think it's like carbon fiber, 3D printed, and they can attach different forms of weaponry to it, whether it's just dropping a frag, they could drop a mine out of it. I know they were talking about how they had a liquid that could basically burn through sort of a lot of cars and tanks, so the person inside would basically melt alive, which sounds horrible. But what's mind-blowing to me is you could have like a $3 million Russian tank that could be destroyed by a $300 drone, which is just crazy how fast the war changes. I think they're kind of the world leaders in budget drone technology. They obviously don't have the budget for these crazy, elaborate, massive drones. I did see some higher budget, bigger drones over there, but for the most part, those FPV drones is really how most of the battles are fought. And you're seeing the cameras on them, so you can see like basically a kamikaze drone will chase someone down, and they have that footage. And that's what the police chief said to me when he gifted me one of the drones they used, and he basically said, he's like, artillery is scary, but a drone will follow you into a building. And it's like kind of a haunting thing to think about. Like they'll see the drone, they'll hear the drone, they might try to shoot it down, or they might try to run. But if it's a kamikaze one, those guys are pretty good at flying them. It's going to chase the soldiers down. A lot of soldiers like pretending to be dead. It's really crazy, some of the footage out there of those FPV drones.
So it's a terrifying tool of war and tool of psychological war, and used by both sides increasingly.
Yeah, both sides use it. I remember I was with Roman in Marseille, and he had his break period. He was allowed to leave the country because he basically volunteered to join the army. Ukrainian men can't really leave Ukraine right now, But Roman, I was in Marseille, and this was a surreal experience for him. We went to the beach, and there was some tourists there flying a drone, and you just saw his instinctual reaction to that drone sound in the sky. Flashback to that.
Currently, they're all, as far as I know, all human controlled, so FPV. But to me, increasingly terrifying notion is of them becoming autonomous. Because the best way to defend against a drone that's FPV controlled is for AI to be controlling that drone. Just have swarms of drones that are $500 controlled by AI systems. And that's a terrifying possibility that the future of warfare is essentially swarms of drones on both sides. And then maybe swarms of drones, say, between US and China over Taiwan.
That would be wild. Because, I mean, they do those crazy drone light shows where they do those performances with the lights and stuff. So they're already pretty sophisticated with sort of pre-programming.
Those are pre-programmed. So the low-level control, flight control of those is done autonomously, but there's a interface for doing the choreography that's hard-coded in. But adding increasing levels of intelligence to a drone where you can detect another drone, follow it, and defend yourself. In terms of the military on both sides of the Ukraine war, that's a technology that's like the most wanted technology is drone defense. Like, how do you defend against drones on both sides? And anybody that comes up with an autonomous drone technology is going to help whichever side uses that technology to gain a military advantage. And so there's a huge incentive to build that technology. But then, of course, once both sides start using that technology, then there's swarms of autonomous drones who don't give a shit about humans, just killing everything in sight on both sides. And that's terrifying, because the civilian deaths that are possible there are terrifying, especially when you look 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now.
Yes, I mean, it's surreal. Like when we went to Kherson, he was like, the entire sky is just full of drones. At any given time, they could decide to come and attack. So like they could just sit there forever waiting for you to come out of that building. They'll wait a long time when someone goes and hides inside, or potentially if it's an open window, fly straight through the open window to get people.
Yeah, so you're not even safe indoors.
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide, and they can wait for a very, very long time.
And as far as I know, even politicians, like, you're in danger everywhere in Ukraine. So if you want to do a public speaking thing and doing it outside, you're in danger, because it's very difficult to detect those drones. They could be anywhere. So it's a terrifying life where you don't know if you're safe at any moment, anywhere in Ukraine.
Well, sure. I mean, it's crazy with what happened to Trump. I thought maybe the next attack on a public figure might come in the form of drone technology, something along those lines. I wonder how they protect against that here.
If that happens, just imagine the insanity that would ensue. Because we understand the idea of a gunman with a rifle shooting somebody. But just like a drone, just imagine the conspiracy theories. Who controlled that drone?
Where did it come from? Yeah.
And now everybody, I mean, that will just cause chaos.
And the range is ever increasing. One of the battalions in Ukraine, because those FPV drones have pretty short range, but they were able to attach it to one of the larger drones with a signal booster. So they could potentially go up to 30, 40 kilometers into the distance. So the drone that hits you could be flown by someone so far away from you. And if they did that domestically, that would be very frightening to think of the sphere of where it could have come from.
Did they, when you talk to the soldiers there, did they have a hope or a vision how the war will end?
No, really. It just seems, I guess it just seems to everyone that it's sort of, there's going to be no middle ground.
When I was there's a kind of optimism that they would be victorious, like definitively. And so is there still that optimism? And also, are they ready for a prolonged war?
I mean, I think it would be a soldier by soldier basis. I know like each of them had a different perspective. I remember I would ask them about like in terms of US politics and their fears, because the first trip I went there, US hadn't agreed to resupply weapons. So it was a very different feeling in the air there of concern over what was going to happen, but they still remained quite optimistic that no matter who got in, they felt would do the right thing. But in terms of prolonged war, most people think it's going to go for a very long time. Like the Children's Hospital, that just was bombed in Kyiv. Anytime there's a moment like that, that reignites everything. And I think it happens on both sides. So I know that there was an attack in Crimea. It was an attack on a beach, I guess. And I don't know if that attack on the hospital was retribution for that, but that's sort of the energy that is felt. Like they might have battle fatigue, but when something happens to civilians, especially kids on your side, kind of reinvigorates the energy to fight for as long as necessary. And in terms of a case-by-case basis, one of my friends, Dimitri, over there who trains jiu-jitsu, owns a gym, he was very passionate about it just because of the history. Like he brought out documents of his grandfather being executed by the USSR. So I know that when the war started, he took a bicycle helmet and his AK-47 and went out into the streets. And he's like, I'd rather be dead than live under Russian rule again. So, I mean, very case-by-case basis, sort of personal history for them, I think.
Did they comment on U.S. politics, whether they hope for Trump or for, in that situation, Biden, now Harris, to win the presidential election?
I think most of the guys tried to keep it pretty positive. You know what I mean? Like some people did think that maybe if Trump was elected, he wouldn't continue to fund it, but they really try to stay optimistic. Most of the people I spoke to really tried to remain optimistic that they would be protected if it comes down to it. But obviously there was a 9-month period where they weren't refunded. So as that stretched, obviously they're refunded now, but it takes a lot of time to get that equipment back to the points at which they need it. So, I mean, if ammunition had ran out, Patriot defense system had ran out, really, really sort of scary prospect there. I don't know I guess no one knows what's going to happen there, but.
Did you lie to people and say you were close to the president so they can be nice to you? Like, so they can convince you to continue the funding?
I'm an Australian diplomat. Diplomat?
Yeah, that could be a nice way in.
Yeah, that would have been a nice way to the top. Luckily for me, most of the places I travel to, jiu-jitsu gives me access to so many different individuals. It's super bizarre. Like oligarchs, royalty, I guess tech wizards. It's a strange group of people, like a cult around the world of I get strange access just for being good at wrestling dudes.